Hey, yeah, it's one of those days. What? So I've been getting some comments lately from some of my friends saying, Todd, really enjoying your videos. You're pretty funny. In a time where, people are unhappy and just a weird time in the world. That makes me feel good. I've always been kind of known to be a little bit of a clown, I guess. People used to call me McClown. Maybe? I don't know. But, yeah, appreciate that. I am funny. Funny looking. But, anyway. So, I have a story to tell you. And this was back in my college days. And I don't know if anybody out there knows what a townie is. I'm going to explain to you what a townie is. So, a townie is an adult adolescent with the mind of an adolescent most times, who never left their town growing up. They grew up there, they stayed there as a young adult, and they never left. Most of the time, they like to cause trouble for people that aren't from the friggin' mill, the chicken mill. Just because you never left doesn't mean you're the king of chicken mill. So when I was going to college over Machias, we had our fair share run-ins with Townies, because they didn't like college kids, mostly because we were, I guess, honing in on their territory. So anyway, one night, I believe it was right after Christmas break, we were, a handful of us came back early from break, and we were kind of hanging out in the dorms, and it was pretty quiet, and sitting around the dorm room. We had the door open because, we were drinking beers, and we wanted to see if any, young ladies had come back early, if they wanted to come in and hang out with us or whatever. That's the way we roll. So we had the door open, so we were just kind of hanging out, and I forget exactly who was there, because my brain's a little funny, but I do know it was me and my roommate Andy Cobbster. So Andy's a big redneck, owns fishing camp, and you didn't want to mess with Andy. He used to drive an old Ford pickup truck that you could only shift with a handle on the shifter. And nobody knew how to drive it but him, and that worked out pretty good because nobody asked to borrow his truck. But man, that thing was a beast. But Andy, he didn't want to mess with him. But I'll tell you, he's one of my best friends today, and just has a heart of gold. One of the best guys I ever known. So he was hanging out. And we had another brother by the name of Bill, and they used to call him Blah Blah because he just talked nonstop. A lot of it was just gibberish. He had a good heart, though. I believe Eazy-E, Eric Carlson was there, possibly. Eazy-E was from Massachusetts. Good little hockey player. Good guy. Married his college sweetheart, which that doesn't happen very often. And anyway, so they moved down to Florida. Anyway, we also had Cheeks. His name was Dave. We called him Cheeks because Dave had leukemia when he was a young fella. So his cheeks were all puffed up from that. And so us being the original bastards that we are, we called him Cheeks. Yeah, that's real original, but it stuck. And Cheeks is a good guy too, man. He just lives down in Florida too, but good guy. Had probably the stinkiest feet I've ever smelled in my life, because I roomed with him for a semester or two. And good guy, but man, he didn't wash his feet. Like when you're in the shower, at least let the soap run down through the middle of your foot and down through your toes and stuff. But stinky feet. We also had Mike Carifio, and Mike's one of my best friends too. We used to call him the Russian Bear, and he's from Massachusetts. And one thing I know about those Mass boys, there's a couple things they did well. One, play hockey. Awesome hockey players. Two, they know how to fight. And they didn't just give you lip service. You know, Mike could back up what he was saying, and he was a big boy. Again, something about these guys who these big lugs, biggest heart of gold Mike has. So, you know, as long as you're on his good side. There was one time where I was not on his good side. We went down to his house in New Hampshire to do some skiing, and Mike had just renovated a guest bedroom at his house, and how should I put this? I plugged up his toilet, and it overflowed all over the floor, and it seeped into the guest room under the door. Yeah, I didn't feel very good about that weekend. One thing about Mike, you open up his cupboard, he has got like 250 cans of tuna fish. Who needs that much tuna fish? Come on. You know, it's all sorted by brand, and then sorted by water or oil and whatnot. Holy Mike, get off the tuna fish, you have a problem. But anyway, so Mike was there. Another one of my brothers, his name was Brian O'Neill. He was what they called non-traditional, so he was a little bit older. I think when we were in our 20s, I think he was probably pushing 40. He was from Canada, a weird dude, very weird. I like him. I like the weird dudes. I got along with him real good, but one thing about Brian, he was a Gold Glove boxer when he was younger. And that's going to come into play later on in this story. But Mike kind of took Brian under his wing, kind of showed him the ways of the campus and whatnot. But I haven't seen Brian in 30 years, I don't think. But anyway, we're hanging out and we're just playing cards. I got the door open, playing cards, drinking beers, lots of beers. And all of a sudden, these four guys come up and they kind of peek their head in. Hey, you know, we're from downtown. So they were Townies, and hey, we're just bored and wanted to hang out. You know, can we hang out with you guys? We brought some beers, and we're like, hey, you brought beers? Okay, don't know you, but come on in. So we, you know, they hung around. They gave us some of their beers, and you know, when you're in college, free beer is good. And you know, they were drinking the good stuff, Miller High Life or something. You know, so we're drinking, playing cards, and all of a sudden those four yahoos said, oh, I gotta go use the bathroom, and they left. All right, whatever. 10 minutes went by, we heard a big commotion out in the friggin' hallway. So we peek out and we look, and those four boys had this kid from Indian Island. His name was Timmy. They had him pinned up against the wall, pushing him around, slapping his face, just being dicks. And Timmy was so quiet, like, he wouldn't hurt anybody, wouldn't say anything bad about anybody, and we just couldn't stand for that. So we had to break that party up. So we ran down there, and the details are a little foggy, but I do remember that I had a guy up against the wall, and we're jostling, you know, pushing, punching body shots or whatever. Andy had some guy pinned right up by the neck, right up against the freaking wall. I turn around, and Mike, the Russian Bear, he picked some guy up right by the friggin' neck and just slammed him on the concrete floor. And he looked at him and he goes, have you had enough? And the guy was like, yep. Like, Mike rattled his friggin' cage. Rattled it. I look over at Brian, the old Gold Glover, and Brian's just putting the knuckles to this other kid. Like, these guys did not know what hit them. Like, they didn't know what kind of group they were hanging out with. And I'm not going to say that I had a big part in that, because I wasn't a huge fighter back in the day, but I'm a lover, not a fighter. But we took care of those boys in good shape. So they took off, like they had enough and ran out. Well, in the whole midst of everything, I had a brand new Red Sox hat that I got for Christmas from my sister Kelly, and it got knocked off in the shuffle, and it was gone. And I'm like, Andy, we gotta go. They got my hat. So running down the hallway, I ran outside, and those 4 yahoos were out there, and I was like, yo, where the frig are you guys going? You got my hat. And I thought I had Andy with me behind me, and I'm talking big, and I'm like, let me kick your ass, So the 4 of them come over, and they surrounded me in the parking lot, and I was like, Andy, let's get him. And I looked behind me. No Andy. Nope. I was all out there by myself. Andy was inside. I don't know if he left me, or if he didn't hear me, or what the frig was going on, but old Toddy was in trouble. One of those yahoos, he came at me with the fist from the friggin' side. He didn't even look at me. Come off the side, he clocked me right here. And I wish I could sit here and tell you guys that I took that punch like a champ. I did not. Down like a sack of potatoes, right in the parking lot. Boom, down and out. So then I got up, and I look, and those yahoos are running away, running to the car. So I'm like, yeah, you better run. I know you're scared of me. And then I turn around, and here comes Andy and Mike and everybody outside. I'm like, oh, that's why you're running. Okay. They weren't scared of me a freaking bit. So, anyway, the good thing is the security guard happened to see everything that was going on, so he had called the cops, and the cops showed up, and they arrested those freaking yahoos. And I had to go to court and testify against that kid and get simple assault or something like that. Got some probation or something. The kicker in all this, when those yahoos come up on campus, I had to sign them in, because when all visitors have to be signed in, so I signed them in because they were in my room. I got freaking written up for it. I got in trouble. They took away my privileges to have guests in my room for a whole freaking semester. Nobody could be in my room. There were no more parties in Todd's room. There was nothing. I was on probation. And then I got home, and I tried to explain to my parents what happened. I thought my dad would have my back. He'd be like, that's bullshit. He's like, serves you right. I go, Dad, you know what that means? You can't come to Machias and visit me. I'm on probation. He's like, well, you should have thought about that. You broke the rules. But Dad, you can't visit me. I don't care. I'm not coming anyway. All right. So I didn't really get the backup with that, but I was not too happy with that decision. But hey, you break the rules, I guess. And this is what I tell my kids. If you break the rules, there's going to be hell to pay. So I broke the rules. I do want to say, Townies. It doesn't apply to all Townies. We did get along with some of the guys that were considered Townies, and they weren't too bad of guys. But for the most part, these guys are a bunch of buttholes. Grow up, man. Just because you didn't move out of the friggin' mill, just because you're stocking shelves at the local grocery store and collecting food stamps, don't take it out on the college kids who are trying to better their life. Anyway. Peace.